Liberty and justice for all.
Supervisor Bartlett. Councilman Prosser.
Here.
Councilman McAfee.
Here.
Councilwoman McCluskey. I'd just like to, I'm sorry, I'll announce we are on Zoom again. So if anybody wants to participate through that.
First item of business, I would offer a motion to accept the minutes of the January 14th, 2021 meeting as presented. Second by Councilman McAfee. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Last month, we adjourned the public hearing associated with the Greens Corners Solar Development Project until this month. At this time, I would like to reconvene that public hearing session for anyone who would care to address the board on the matter. Is there anyone here who would care to address the board? We'll open that public, we'll open the Zoom public hearing at 7:03. Are there any comments? Chester, please state your name and address so we can include your comments within the record.
William Trebo, 17911 Old Rome State Road. Hello, everyone. I submitted some information for your review. I want to also say I appreciate the conversation I had with the community. Appreciate taking the call and returning my call. I had a petition that we did circulate for about 5 days, and to draw your attention to the fact that we had over 200 signatures, and that was not for a reduced version of this. This was for no project, right? That was a signed petition saying they would like to not see the project in any form. So I realize that may not be reality, but I just want to use that as an encouraging note when you're considering your zoning and anything that's involved with the changes in the zoning and this ordinance. So thank you. Be happy to have an idea of what you think the time frame is and updates when you get a chance. You heard our concerns last time, so I don't have any new ones. We obviously are concerned about the change of the character of the community. These are popping up everywhere. I don't know if you saw the new one this week, in Rutland, 110 megawatt project. It comes as part of the town of Watertown. So these are coming fast and furious at us. And I'm just concerned that this, this picture of panels and chain link fence could define our town. And that would be a terrible vision, in my opinion, and also a terrible legacy to leave to the next generation. As I look at my kids growing up, you want zoning, right, to prevent that and make it a place for them to live, work, and visit. And I certainly don't think anybody wants to visit Snowtown, USA. They have more solar panels than snow sculptures. So just a thought. I want to thank you again for taking the time to speak with me and consider our concerns. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Let the record reflect that all the board members do have a copy of your petition. Let that into the record as you see. Yes, sir. Please rise and state your name.
Thank you, Dave Walton. I live on Old Rome Road. I was noting in the letter that Borlaug sent back to you or the zoning board, indicating there's a paragraph in there that indicates that the 10% rule relative to farmland being special farmland. He said that was a disqualifying notion and they couldn't do anything under those circumstances. Has there been any response back to him?
I know it hasn't. The subject is still open at this point.
Yeah.
We probably won't be addressing any modifications or changes to the local ordinances until March's meeting. We've got a little more research to do, and I know I've got 2 more meetings coming up that I have to gather some more information from. But nothing will be done, I don't believe, until our March meeting. Okay. It's also very fluid right now. What I can say is we're getting a lot of response back from planning board members. We've got 5 of them. Each of them has their own ideas on what sentences should be injected into the ordinance, and what modifications are necessary. We've got to compile all those and get a last version so that the board will have something to act on. And we're in the middle of gathering all that information yet.
Is there any consensus now about what 40% means? I'm a little confused about it. I understand there's a couple different ways to interpret the 40%. If you had a 100-acre lot, you could use 40% of it, assuming there's no special agricultural land involved. Now that 40% is within that 100-acre land. I assume they could use up the whole 100 acres in terms of usability of the land by spacing the solar panels, allegedly to assist any farming that might take place within those panels.
That's something that we're going to have to get some clarification from Borlex.
My personal opinion is you got a 100-acre parcel, you're going to use 40% of it. Why do you have a 100-acre parcel? Why don't you concentrate the panels? Or is that an accommodation that's made to those parcels where farming is now underway?
That's a good point, Mr. Walton.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anyone else for the rest of the? Yes, sir.
I'm Darren Suarez with Borlex. And very much appreciate the opportunity to come and hear. Obviously, we've heard the last couple of meetings. Really appreciate all the insights from everybody in the town regarding the project itself. And glad to hear that conversation. Glad to engage in the discussion today. Really just came to express an interest, to engage in conversation, to understand specifically what the concerns of the community are, to address those concerns head on, and hear everyone to make adjustments as appropriate to the project, to ensure that it is, quite honestly, it blends into the community as much as possible, and that it's consistent with the intention. So certainly you've heard concern regarding fencing. It's something we're investigating, whether or not different types of visual impacts. We have done visual impact studies to basically show where you can see the project, where you can't see the project. There's questions raised here, particularly on the 10% of the platform. We're glad to talk about why basically the rates are put in which direction, why they're located, why a 100-acre property is selected, or why it's utilized. There's certainly a lot to be learned about the process, specifically two concerns in general about too much solar, seeing community overrun. And we can talk about and address those issues, like why there basically isn't enough transmission capacity to actually be overrun. So glad to have conversations about all those things. Really glad to be in this community and to engage with the folks. Realize that we are here because we want to be a long-term basically member of this community. And our intention has been that we were part of the landowners that own their properties, that are leasing them, are currently interested in having this community. And so we are there only because they're inviting us. We realize that it's an invitation. It's an invitation to be part of the community. So just wanted to offer that we're glad to be part of this. We obviously did receive our letter, and we're glad to discuss it. So thanks again.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who would care to address the board? Yes, sir.
Jake Ledoux, Robin's Family Grain, here on behalf of the Robbins family, as well as the farm. Just kind of going back to circling back to my thoughts from last meeting that were also on behalf of the family. We talk a lot about legacy, and we've been once again, I'll say we see a lot of those legacies in falling down barns, overgrown fields, and rusted out farm machinery, especially now with rising commodity prices that affect dairy farms, as well as this world and this administration that now is a lot of things just up in the air as they will with the administration. There's a lot of unknowns right now. And once again, during the coronavirus pandemic, the farm was one of the few employers in the community that was actively hiring people, providing income for a lot of people that would not have work elsewhere. And a lot of that comes from our ability to produce money as a business. And that's how we keep people employed, food on their table, and as well as allow them to pay taxes. You know, if you look at the Salmon Run Mall, that was at once farmland. That was now paved over, and now a building's there. That's never going to move. This solar facility is not something that's going to be here for 1,000 years. When we talk about legacy, I talk about where I'm going to be in 20 years out of the farm as well, as the employees that we have along the way. How much infrastructure development, equipment purchases, inputs, local people hired, how much this property, this project will help us assist with those goals of maintaining a viable farming enterprise in a state which is actively trying to, in some ways, remove agriculture as sometimes we feel in the equation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else care to address the board?
Something else I'd like to say in response to that. That's right.
Go ahead, sir.
You know, this project was started back in 2019 before the administration changed. So that's the proof for the project. And you spoke to wanting to involve the community. Well, we've never reached out to the community of the Robbins family since 2019. So in all due respect, this is a zoning issue. If I want to put a garbage dump on my property, just because it's my property doesn't mean the right to do it. I don't get the right to do whatever I want with my property to benefit my property and destroy the property of everybody around me. That's what's happening. That's the issue. That's the zoning issue. It's not a property rights issue. It's a zoning issue, right? Zoning is there to protect the current residents in the community, which most of you are not. You're landowners, you're not residents. We are residents. We're talking about residents. There's a huge issue between being a resident and being a landowner. I want to point that out. Remind you, it's a zoning issue. It's not a property rights issue, in my opinion. Like I said, I don't have the right to do whatever I want on my property if it damages other people's, property values or their standard of living or their quality of life. That's the main issue. I want you to remember that. And you're here to protect the residents, not more or less, not landowners, residents, and landowners, and more. Whoever else it is. So I would encourage you, to remember that. In the employment issue, there's that again, it doesn't give you the right to kill the property values of all the residents. You employ a couple of people. It just doesn't. And there's plenty of other opportunities for the farm. And there's other opportunities other than solar, in my opinion. You have land trusts, there's ways to farm. That's actually farming. And it's not temporary. You're going to put a substation in, that's not going to be there temporarily. The roads aren't temporary. Nobody's going to clean those up. And those are there the rest of our lives, including mine. So I just want you to remember that. And I think that's, that's a little bit of a false statement. You can say it's not permanent. A substation is quite permanent. Thank you.
Mr. Wall.
Yes, sir. Just to follow up on what Bill said, I find it appalling that this project is likely to happen in an R1 zoning area. I mean, people have substantial investments in their homes, and they're going to have to look at this thing. And I hear this gentleman here about mitigating with fences and all the rest. Well, they're not particularly attractive either. I just think with all the land there is around here, you don't need to put a solar project in a residential area, which has the potential for many more residences to go in, where people seek the solace of having a country setting for their home. I think it's disgusting, and I'm tired of getting pushed around by stuff like this that happens. And it's all driven by the politics. It's all driven by the subsidies that are provided here and there for everybody. And for all those subsidies to benefit those people, who gets gypped? Who are the losers? The people that are already there, that have a $500,000 or $1 million home. They're the ones. I'm just disgusted with it. I served in the military. I was a lieutenant. I was an infantryman. And I'm tired of watching people like me have their rights taken away unilaterally by some authority that I have no control over. And I realize I have no control over. And I'm very sorry to have to speak in those terms. Forgive me if you will, please, sir.
Well, all right, sir. That's why we have open sessions and open public hearings, so you can vent if you want. Certainly understand, is anyone else, before I close the public hearing, anyone else care to address the board on the matter?
Go ahead.
Oh, well,
Mr. Herbert.
yeah, this isn't about the solar panel expansion. This is something else.
So
So,
if you give me 10 minutes, we'll.
yeah,
We'll
absolutely.
open the floor for.
Yep,
general
okay.
comment. Yes, we'll do that.
Scott there, speaking on behalf of Rouse and Luke Greenwood, located at 2356 Massey Street Road. You know, not all of the land that is in this project is quote unquote prime farmland. I'd be interested in reading the definition of prime farm. Some of the land is property that has been purchased 25 years ago. That was once agricultural, and now it's not. It's not in production. It's shrub and brush that isn't doing anything right now. You know, so some of this land is a way to restore it, to bring it back into some sort of agriculture. Last month, when I mentioned the opportunities for local farms to invest into sheep or other things, same thing happened. Other people in this audience shook their head. That's already happening in our community. Local farmers that have not been able to make it in dairy because of the prices that Mr. Ledoux has talked about, have sold their livestock, have sold their farm, have gone from dairy and transitioned to other types of agriculture. Agriculture is not dairy. It's not beef. It's growing food for our people. You know, the sheep thing is real. You know, that's an opportunity. That's one way to utilize the land. And I would just, again, challenge everybody to think about the definition of agriculture. But also, you know, it spoke to me what Mr. Walton said about being a veteran. My father-in-law, Russ, is a veteran as well. He served in Vietnam. He purchased land. He paid taxes on it for the last 25 years. There should be some opportunity for him to take care of himself and family, that kind of thing. Again, some comments that I made last month. The town of Watertown has set a precedent as far as allowing a certain percentage of agricultural land to be converted to solar projects. There's already solar projects going on in the town of Watertown. By my naked eye, I would say more than 10% of those fields that I see solar panels on have solar panels on them. Something to consider as we move forward. The aesthetics of our community, certainly we want to be a desirable place for people to come to. But you know, I think some of the basis of this conversation resulted around, or was a result of having conversation about taking prime agricultural land out of production. If we go and build houses all the way down Old Rome State Road, we're taking farmland out of production forever. I mean, those homes are going to be there for. I mean, who has a house that was built in the 1800s that's still there, that's not being used, right? So this is a way to not only have a renewable source of energy, it's a way to continue the use of production agriculture in some fashion. People scoff at the notion of sheep, but I work in the agriculture industry, and I'll tell you, sheep is the fastest growing market in the USA. It's growing faster than beef, it's growing faster than poultry. So that's something to consider.
I just like to be consistent across all of our, practices. Thanks for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else care to address the board? I'm sorry. Does anyone else have any comments that is joining us by Zoom? Hearing no comments. Is there anybody from Borlex on the Zoom?
I thought there was supposed to be one, but I
I
don't.
think Andrew was.
Yeah, I'm online. Hi, Pam.
Hi, Andrew. Okay. Was there anything you would like to add before we close the public hearing?
No, that's okay. Thank you, though. Yeah, I know Darren spoke on our behalf, but thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Andrew. Seeing that there's no one who would choose to speak further on the issue, we will close the public hearing on the Green Corners solar project at 7:23. And just for those of you that are here,
Just to clarify, the public hearing was not on the green creek solar project, it was on the amendments to the zoning.
Yeah. so as I said previously, there probably will not be any decision on this and how we structure any ordinances or zoning issues until our March meeting, March 11th. I do have some questions that I have with Borlex, and I would like to get the meeting with the people from Borlex that can sit down and make a decision, not just put something off for a month or 2 months. With all respect, we have a lot of questions from a lot of the property owners in the town of Watertown. And it is town-wide. The issue is grabbage roots, and it's a town-wide issue as it pertains to our zoning ordinance and the effect that it has on the town of Watertown in general. Maybe the town clerk can organize something with Andrew and Borlex. Just some of the questions I would like to answer are, can this project operate and be feasible without it being located whatsoever in the town of Watertown? Number two, are you willing to make some decisions on the percentage of coverage? And I have to get together and contact some of the Robbins family because I'm kind of confused. Is my understanding that this land that is in question was set aside in the Tug Hill Land Conservation. And they were given $1.8 million for setting aside this land in perpetuity. Under the terms and conditions of that commitment from the Robbins and the Tug Hill Land Conservancy, it's not for any additional use other than farming, and it calls for no additional development on that property. I don't know if the easement has been signed transferring that over to the land trust, if the Robbins family has received the money for that, and how can you, for lack of a better term, double dip, get paid to not use it in any other form, and then expect the town to set up ordinances to accommodate your requests for utilizing other development, not specific to farming. So there's a number of questions I got to have, and I just like to, hopefully we can get the town clerk to correlate, put together some kind of a meeting within the next week with the people from Borlex to answer some of the questions that I have. I know the town board members have stacks of paper information on this. They have questions as well as some modifications that have been suggested by the town planning board. Hopefully we can speed this process up one way or another. Do we need an ordinance against this? If the state of New York is going to come in and say, you're going to do it anyway, that benefits no one. That's something that hopefully will be noted by the 200 people that signed this petition.
I would
Let me finish. Because there's the low hanging fruit always gets gobbled up first. Not that I'm afraid of any petitions. I honor and respect the petitions and the concerns and interests. there are a number of parties involved in this. And I'd like to give consideration to all of the parties involved. I had some questions that I can't get answered in a public setting like this. I need some answers from Boralex and the solar farm developer, firsthand in front of me in my office. No Zoom, you come in my office, we can space them apart, so Andrew, you haven't got to be afraid, I know you got a new baby down there, I hope he's doing well. We're glad to do that. We would certainly welcome that, and maybe we could coordinate that sometime next week. I know we have another meeting on the subject with different people, different organizations, but it just seems to me, and I'm not trying to tip my hand one or the other. It just seems to me that with all of this solar development taking place in Jefferson County, the true nature of this community will be changed forever. And I don't hesitate to say that. We're looking out at another large, one of these industrial complexes, solar complexes up in Champion and Rutland, squeezing in on us. And I have to, I'll just leave it at this. I have some serious questions, and I would hope that Boralex will come to this meeting once we get it scheduled and provide me with answers so that I can relay those concerns and answers that you might provide to my fellow board members. That being said,
Joel, shouldn't we also hear directly from the Bug Hill Land Trust?
yes.
You know, I'd want to talk with them too, so know what specifically that easement or however they worked it, yes.
Yeah, yes, go ahead.
On behalf of the family, sir, there was a potential easement, but it was not signed.
You have not signed that easement. You have any intention of signing it 6 months from now?
That is the question for powers that be.
Good answer. Are you a politician? That being said, we'll close that portion and end the discussion on the solar panel project. Thank you all for your input. And once again, in the month that has gone by since we last opened public hearings, we've received volumes of additional information. And thank you all for keeping me busy. Because in my old age, I need to be kept busy. The public hearing is now closed on the matter. What I'd like to do is go through the rundown of the scale here. I see that Mr. Squirrel has just showed up, but I think we have time to address a number of the resolutions that are in the packet.
Joel,
Yes.
did you want to open up the floor for Mr. Everly?
Sorry, yes, Mr. Regal, go ahead. Floor is open for general comment.
Thank you. Sounds like you have your plate full. So I'll keep my comments very, very brief. First of all, my name is Joe Eberly, and I live at 15770 US Route 11, just south of Bill Elliott's brick house, the big mansion there. Moved there in 2008. I love our community, but we have a problem, and that is water. That's not a surprise to anyone. Our water, all along Route 11, all along Mack Street Road, many of our wells are salt. Many of our wells have high sulfur content, mine included. I would like to have $1 for every 100 I placed into my house to solve the water problem. But it's continuing. This past summer, as you know, was one of the driest we've had, and the water content was absolutely awful. I throw this out there for the board to consider, maybe some infrastructure changes that would allow an extended water line down towards the town line, all along Route 11. A lot of opportunities there to develop that property It's not currently farmland. Some of it's wetland, but quite honestly, some of the people who live there are going to have a difficult time selling their homes because of the water. It's awful. There's no getting around. This is a time of an opportunity perhaps to put some infrastructure in the ground. Interest rates are at historic lows. I talked to a financial advisor even today. Long-term bonds are selling at 1.75 to 2%. I've never seen that. I've been in school business for 30 years. I was the business administrator at school, retiring 6 years ago. And so in all my years, I've never seen rates that low. So while I know there's a lot on the table in the town these days, but I just want to throw that out there that infrastructure improvements on that strip of property, all in the southern end of our town, we're dying out there with the water that we have. And now my son, who owns J. Everly Woodworking, not too far from my house, has one of the best water supplies ever. I mean, he's on spring, he's got water all year round, and it's beautiful, clean, crystal clear, wonderful drinking water. I'm not as fortunate. So that's really all I have to say, and I just throw it out there for your consideration. Thank you very much.
As you can see. Else care to address the board on any topic? Seeing no one chooses to speak, we'll close the floor to the public. Mr. Scordo has an update for us on proposed water district number 7. We've been working diligently, and that is easel over here if you need it. If you don't need it, well, you're fine.
Okay, yeah, I just got individual handout.
That'll be fine.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Supervisor and town board, new members here. Thank you.
Dave? Right. Dave? Mr. Walton?
Thank you. Thanks. You're welcome. Get everybody away. I guess that's good. But Joel mentioned, I'm Pat Scordo. I'm an engineer with IMO Architecture, Engineer, and Land Surveying. And yeah, we're possibly rekindling a project that we discussed. I think it started back in 2006. We dubbed the name Northeast Water District, and I think we can still keep that name. So Joel stopped into our office right around Christmas time and said, you know, much like what we just heard from Mr. Eberly, sounds like there was very similar concerns with people in the Hampton Gardens area, State Street, and heading up the hill towards County Route 160. And again, this was an area that we studied several years ago that was part of a much larger district. But this was the area of concentration. These are the people that approached Joel just this past summer when we had an historic dry season. So what we did is we took a look at it and kind of got right to the chase. Again, we were familiar with the area. So we went right to a cost estimate, construction cost estimate, and then a project cost. And I guess just to give you I already mentioned the area, but so the 11 by 17 map you have in front of you, you can see we highlighted the area we're talking about tonight, the area that we did the estimate on in green. There's a couple that you'll see in orange overlay to the bottom part of the drawing, and then another one at the top. There's another drawing to go with this that showed what the entire Northeast Water District at one point in time was Ridge Road, Weaver Road, up to Headcock Road. And that's what that orange represents. Even Route 12 to capture
some of the residential or the hotels that are out there, living areas. But now we're just focusing in on this one. That project didn't go forward for a variety of reasons, and maybe someday the rest of it may get rejuvenated. But for right now, we're just kind of focusing in on the area that I've highlighted in green. And the other thing I gave you is kind of, like I said, the nuts and bolts of everything we've studied here in the last 6 or 7 weeks. So I'm assuming most of you by now are equivalent or are familiar with the term equivalent dwelling unit. Does that sound like a term that anybody know, Pam, Joel? But anyway, just quickly, it's a comparison back to what one average residential house will use for water. The term is widespreadly used with funding agencies, and it's always discussed, well, how many EDUs are in the district? How many equivalent dwelling units? So you'll hear me mention that over and over, but that's what it means. So when I mention that, that's again, an average household, which in this case, we're saying is 175 gallons of water per day. That's how much an equivalent dwelling unit will use. And it mostly comes into play when you're talking about commercial entities, restaurants, for example. A restaurant that uses 1,750 gallons of water per day is 10 EDUs or 10 equivalent dwelling units of residential. Being this district is mostly residential with very little commercial, it's somewhat irrelevant, but again, that's what I'm referring to when I use that abbreviation. So this district, Joel called it potentially district number 7, has 115 EDUs. Now out of that, there's a total of 122 what we call billable entities. And I'm just reading right in this first block of text right at the top of this. 88 residential, 6 commercial, and 28 vacants. And not actually knowing what the town does to assess vacants, we, for this district, took the liberty of using a quarter. I think when we initially did Northeast Water, it was maybe 1 EDU for every 1,000 feet of road frontage. But since so many of these parcels, especially in Hampton Gardens, if you look at our map there, are small, almost like city lots, we said that's not really applicable because some of them don't even have 100 feet of frontage. So we arbitrarily, although I've done it with experience, I've done it on other projects, assigned them a value of 0.25 EDU. So I mentioned we had 115 in this potentially new district, and at 175 gallons per day per EDU, I get about 19,000 gallons a day is our estimated usage. So then going down to the second group of a block of text, rather, number used in calculations. So I mentioned the 175. Right now, the city of Watertown charges the town of Watertown $4.09 per unit of water, which is 748 gallons. And what we assigned as a value for operation and maintenance was $1.35. I think Joel mentioned they use 91 cents right now. Gets you to $5 per unit, and that barely is covering your costs. I understand. Part of the engineering that's going to make this district work is our proposed connection is right at the end of State Street, right at Water Street. And there's a 12-inch main there, and that'll work just fine for the lower areas. When we start creeping up that hill, we're going to run out of pressure. So we're going to need to build a booster pumping station as part of this project, which results in more operation and maintenance, electrical usage, pump replacement, that type of thing. So we jumped it up to a total of $5.44 a unit. And I converted that to dollars per thousand, which is $7.27 per 1,000 gallons of usage. And then that AP is just an economic term I'll refer to in a second. So the next three blocks here are various funding options that I've seen used in projects, although the first one isn't much of a funding option, although it is one, it's probably not going to result in a successful project. So that first one is assuming a 25% grant, and you finance the remainder at 2% for 38 years. And by the time you work the economics down, you add in the cost of water, which includes the O&M number, you get to about $1,281 per EDU, which that's a little on the high end. The New York State Comptroller requires their approval on any water district over, it's like $925. I don't have the exact figure, but somewhere in there. Meaning, if your district's gonna come in above that, you need to get their approval. You need to write a letter, you need to give them your engineering report, explain why are you over this threshold that we say is the average cost people in New York State should pay for using water for 1 year. It'll usually go through, it's just an extra hurdle, that's all.
Right
But-
now, it's taking 6 to 8 months.
Oh, is it? No, so it's no
I
easy.
just did one that long ago.
Good.
No, there's nobody in the office down there.
That's true. Everybody's working from home. Yeah, so it's a hurdle, and it sounds like it's a lengthy hurdle as well. But not to mention, you still got to run the projects by the public. They still got to be able to stand behind this thing and vote it. Otherwise, you're not going to get any funding. Funding people won't give you any money if the public's not behind the project. So my second and potentially third scenarios are the ones where we hope to end up. Certainly the second, that's a 50% grant assumption. And running the math down through, that's about $1,000. Again, still over the comptroller approval or requiring comptroller. The third option is 75% grant, and that gets you at about $740 a year. That may be a little optimistic. You know, maybe we'll end up or hope to end up somewhere in between those last two. But I think the thing that'll help this project advance from the reason why it didn't advance before is I'm going to suggest that we hire a firm that specializes in conducting income surveys. So an income survey is where they'll actually go door to door. Even during COVID, we just used them in Henderson, and the results were fantastic. It was a little awkward, and they got a little pushback, but the individual is pretty persistent at it. And anyway, feels that they can get the job done, and especially in this area that we're talking, we're likely to end up with an income survey that shows results below the county census, which has us at $70,000 for the town of Watertown. That's a high number, meaning the funding agents look at that and say, well, with that amount of income per family, you can afford a greater value for water than if your median household income was, say, $48,000, $52,000. So they have a chart, and based on your MHI, median household income, they say 1.5%, roughly, maybe closer to 2%, times that is where you should pay for water. That's kind of where they start. So I'm hoping if we can do an income survey and certainly get it below the 70, it'll pay off. It'll pay dividends, because then we got a stronger funding application. And they can, you know, weigh in that you need more help. You need more grant to get that project cost down, so they can make a project that's affordable to the people. So that's kind of where we are. And I guess any questions, I'll do my best to try and answer.
What kind of cost are you talking, or the company?
The income survey, that's only probably, I can get a quote exactly, Tim, but it should be less than 5,000, maybe like 335, but I should have been better prepared. I probably should have asked before time, but I can get that in no time. I already talked to him about it, so he's aware of it. And he goes, the individual said, I'm not gonna waste your time. He goes, you show me the area, and with Google Earth mapping, they can do a cursory review and get a feel for, are we gonna come in below the town census? And if so, he'll do it. But he goes, if I don't, you know, if I'm opening up and I'm seeing 2-acre lots and pools and tennis courts and 5,000 square foot houses, he goes, forget it, we're not gonna do it. I said, well, I don't think you're gonna find it.
There's no plan here.
I'll volunteer to get under 70,000 guarantee you.
I think you're right, Dave, absolutely.
If you can give me a copy of that agreement, we'll take care of it. I can add a motion on the end up to up to a certain range. Financing the income agreement, the
Income survey.
income survey.
Second.
Just remind me when we get to the resolutions to add that.
I thought you already made the resolution. A second.
Okay. No, we'll do that afterwards.
All right.
Well, I'll get a hold of them right away. And the other thing we'll try and do is set up a meeting with rural development. And they're hard to come by too, Joe, as you know. I'm working with them on another project. And they're working from home, they're short staffed, it's just difficult. But we'll try, and any one or two board members are welcome to join once I get the meeting set up, if I do. But we'll try, because that's probably our first target, is rural development. I think this is more of a rural development project. EFC, environmental facility score more on dire need, like consent order type stuff. Like if there was a restaurant that was on a well and they had to close down because they got E. coli and it affected their business. So we're not that. We're mainly residential with people that legitimately have concerns with low water and contaminated water. We'll probably still submit to EFC, but I know last time we just didn't score that well. But hopefully with rural development and an income survey, we can generate some traction. So that's really good.
Any questions for that? Thank you, sir, for coming
Okay.
out on a frigid night.
No, thanks for clearing the building for me. I heard about that. So, yeah. You guys got your work cut out for you. You're calling your services again.
Yeah.
You'll save me having to bother you tomorrow. On a different matter. 30-some plus acres over off of Arsenal.
Yeah.
I need to have a dimensional survey and a topography that specifically shows this parcel is 33 plus. We gotta somehow, I gotta get that to New York. And it's something where we can transpose some, it's gotta have a bold outline of the property itself. And then the meets and bounds, length and width.
Yeah, I know that's all done because the plan has been approved by the planning board and filed with the clerk's office. So we've got that. I can just turn the topography layer on it. Is it something you want me to send directly or just get it to you?
If you could, let me give you the email address.
Yeah, I'm ready.
It's D. McLeika, MacHLIKA.
I forgot.
At venue-strategies.com.
If that
You
doesn't,
don't sound very convincing.
if it doesn't work, get a hold of me because I have it in my
If it
email.
gets kicked back.
You type in the first letter, it comes up automatically.
Yeah.
Pretty sure it's MacHLIKA.
Joel, send them an email and then.
We'll do a test run first.
Yeah.
So if that's it, I'll send it to him and I'll just copy you, Joel, so you know.
If you would, please, and we've got some information, Ted just told me today on the sleeves for that property for water, sewer, and yeah,
Yeah, I know our surveyors went out there to collect some of that data.
that's good. We get that. We'll need that for where we drop the footprint of the building. But if you do that for me, I greatly appreciate it, and I won't even bother you tomorrow.
Sounds good, Joel.
I'm working from home tomorrow.
Yeah, right. That doesn't work too well with us.
And I appreciate it very much.
Okay, thank you, board.
Thank you. And it's good to see you back in the building.
Yeah, good to be here. Let's get it right this time.
And I might have another proposal for you, another project. We'll see how things work.
Mr. Everly, that one there? I've heard rumblings of that, not just from him, but from others. 'Cause I'm a town resident too, so I listen in. Might be potential there.
I had an unfortunate meeting with, I think you were there when I met with USDA, and they hadn't come and given it to us before, and it was a rural development. People from the state office came up and they wouldn't even look at the project. Because back then, we were trying to look at getting it up over the hill up onto Cagwin Road.
Yeah,
You were running
yeah,
that.
yeah.
They wouldn't even look at it servicing the trailer park who needs it desperately because around walls and it's always a mess. They would have had to rebuild the entire infrastructure inside the park to meet the standards. That kind of fell away right there. Give me a couple of weeks and I'll get back to you on that.
Yeah, I'd love to help you out with that. Absolutely.
No sense in sitting around doing nothing.
We don't want that.
Just because you're home don't mean you can't. Do it. Well, I appreciate it very much.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Town clerk's correspondence.
I don't have any this month.
Accept the town clerk's report. We can move to resolution. Just tonight, I gave, added in the email, which was a request for appointment to the justice position. I'd like to have the board consider that along with the other ones that were submitted. But number one.
So can I ask a question for you? I've got resolutions 1 through 4, and then I go to 12. What am I missing in between?
I only have
5, 6, 7, 8.
Knew that was coming.
I put my foot into that one, didn't I?
Well, there are only 4 of these. I don't know how you got them before. It must have been on the bottom of the file.
Okay.
That is one.
Bye.
One is about John Evers being promoted. Okay.
Well, it looks like you got some last month.
That's last month.
Those,
I remember that.
Yeah, okay, it says 12.
I think what happened, Dave, is you picked up the packet last month. They went on after you took the packet. So when you picked up your packet this month, it had those from last month.
Oh, okay, all right,
Also, Springfield.
good, thank you.
Whatever.
Yeah, it's your fault.
Everything is. Ask Ted.
All right.
It's my fault.
Okay.
Okay, number 1, whereas interviews have been conducted by the justice court personnel to fill a vacancy that exists in the town justice court typist position. Whereas the typist position has been vacant with the termination of Derek Lawton, former typist. Whereas Darcia M. Graves, 17263 Comstock Road, Adams, New York, 13645, has been recommended as an individual to fill said vacancy. Therefore, be it resolved, Darcia M. Graves is hereby appointed to fill the vacant typist position on a provisional basis prior to retaining permanent full-time status effective Monday, March 1st, 2021. The hourly rate of $15.90 per hour. The offer of motion is there a second? Second. Second by Councilman McAfee. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Number 2, whereas Pivot Employee Assistance Services offers counseling and other services to town employees who are in need of counseling on personal issues, including referring employees to agencies to assist the employee. Whereas it's necessary to enter into a fee for service agreement between Pivot and the town of Watertown for the fiscal year 2021. Therefore, be it resolved, the supervisor is hereby authorized to execute said agreement attached as Exhibit A on behalf of the town of Watertown for the period covering the year 2021 and the cost of $400. I'll offer the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Crossan. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Whereas the town contracts with the town of Watertown Ambulance Company, a 501c3 not-for-profit organization, to provide ambulance service for town of Watertown residents. Whereas the contract between the town of Watertown Ambulance Company and the the town of Watertown expired on December 31st, 2020. Whereas funds were included within the fiscal year 2021 budget to enter into an agreement with the ambulance company to provide ambulance services for town residents. Therefore, be resolved, the supervisor is hereby authorized to execute said agreement. Taxes Exhibit A between the town of Watertown ambulance and the town of Watertown under the terms and conditions referenced there. I'll offer the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman McAfee. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. I think, let's move to number 5 here. I'll offer a motion to pay the following abstract. Following general vouchers 19 to 40, totaling $2,954.34. Special district voucher number 13, totaling $2,115.84. General vouchers 21 to 40, totaling $19,717.57. Highway vouchers 24 to 45, totaling $17,028.71. Special district vouchers 14 to 20, totaling $110,491.91. Offer the motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. It seems there's nobody here. We can adjourn to an executive session right here and not hold.
Okay, hold on. We want to turn off the Zoom.
Yeah.
Elena,
Yep, I'll put you in.
thank you.
Yep.
Number 4, whereas the resignation of Eric Schwartz, town justice, effective 5 p.m. January 2021, creates a vacancy in the office of town justice. Whereas a number of individuals, both attorneys and non-attorneys, have submitted letters of interest in being appointed to the position of town of Watertown justice. Whereas the applicants must be electors or residents of the town of Watertown. Whereas a successful applicant will serve in the position until the next general election in November of 2021. Therefore, be it resolved that after review of the applicants who submitted letters of interest, Mr. Stephen Munson, residing at Woodside Drive, a town resident, is hereby appointed to the position of town of Watertown justice and the established salary of $980.98 bi-weekly. I'll offer the motion. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. What was it you were going to remind me to do with, the income survey?
Right, income.
I'd offer a motion establishing funds for an income survey that shall be conducted with regard to proposed water district number 7 in the town of Watertown at a cost not to exceed $5,000. Second. Second by Councilman McAfee. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. I've had a lot of joy the last month trying to come up with correct revenue estimates for our monthly report that you get. And we finally got that straightened out. I went through this briefly. I just picked it up today, the annual statements, the monthly statements. Things seem to be quite in order and addressed with the actual revenues that came in, 2020 revenues that came in 2021. You have to back them up a year to record them. I can say the sales tax revenue was up, contrary to all the issues involved around COVID epidemic, and the reason for that is internet sales now being a factor in it. I would hate to think that internet sales is going to be replacing the brick and mortar stores, but it does not look good. We've lost an additional $9 million in assessed value. And our equalization rate has dropped to 57%. That means that your house, my house, everybody's house and property is assessed at actually, for county purposes, at 57% of what it's worth. Getting towards the end of the year, this year, I think it might behoove us to take a good look at having a reval done. I know Mr. Tibbetts does not want to be involved in one of them in his remaining year, so. But you have to get on the list, and the last time it took 4 years to get on the list to have it actually done. But one of the bad things that happens on a reval, it might bring you to 100% where the equalization rate is valued at 100% of your property value. You also pay more of the county bills. The county charges you more. As long as we can offset that with any increase we might get in sales tax revenue, it could be beneficial to take a look at it at this point, because they are collecting more from different sources now. Hopefully within a year or two, the tax certiorari agreements will not be filed again, like the ones that they have the pyramids and all. We took a big hit on that this year. Coals, that's all, and now it's a new strategy in all of these people that they just every year that's a point of business for them. Tell me you want a reduction in your taxes.
Well, quite frankly, based upon the hit they all took during COVID as far as retail sales, if they went out and got an appraisal based upon the income approach, we'd be screwed. Yeah. So
I'd like to see the internet sales. That could say, let's say you're looking at Bed Bath & Beyond. They're collecting internet sales tax from Bed Bath & Beyond in the cloud, so to speak. They have to pay it as long as they're doing business in New York, having a physical store in New York. How that can't be addressed to take care of any decrease that they might look at as far as tax certiorari. Physically in the building, they're losing revenues, like the mall. You're down to one half of an anchor store now.
unfortunately, that's where it's measured though. So I mean, if they're going to get their real property appraised and commercial appraisal, it's going to be based on the income from that property. So that's the dilemma you're in, and I don't see internet sales slowing down even when we come out of this. People have found it's just too convenient. And Amazon is just
it's unfortunate.
one big time.
When you buy something from them and they know the sales tax is 8%, do we actually get that money, or does it go to the state and then the state has got to?
Goes to the state, then to the county, and then to
I
us.
figured a bunch of people got their fingers
We
in
get
it first. Yeah.
we get roughly 8% of the 25%, 22%. That is divvied up amongst all the towns and villages. We get roughly 8% of that 22%. That's what the sales tax revenue is based on our total taxable assessed value. You lose taxable assessed value, the multiplier goes down, you get less sales tax revenue. We used to be the number 3 largest collector of sales tax revenue behind Alexandria and I believe Orleans. We've always been number 3. Now with it being appraised at assessed as 57% on an equalization rate, is going to drop us even more. Because what shows up and what's due to the county, or as reimbursement of sales tax revenues, is actually 57% of all the value of the property in town. Some have gone lower. 62 or 63 the last couple of years. But this $9 million dropped it down again, and Lord knows the after effects of this virus, and if these businesses can pick up again. I know there's a lot of stores and restaurants that aren't going to open again, and that's going to have a dramatic impact on municipalities.
Yeah, it's amazing. Chick-fil-A wants to tear a building down and then build a new one in its place.
The one that turned it down is only 5 years old.
Yeah.
We have some good news. We got another automobile dealership building being built out here. So that'll help a little bit. But other than that, I think the total taxable assessed value is going to stay pretty steady. static here for a year or so, and then it might take another hit next year. All we can do is try to write it out and not try to spend too much money, Ted. Teddy's doing a good job.
Spending the money?
But what do you hear about our truck? Because everybody's saying now they can't get chips to make the cars.
End of this month.
All right.
Yeah, I called them last week and they said the end of February will be here.
Oh, good, good.
He has designs on another truck.
They're dropping like flies
They're
over there.
falling apart. He did have the information for me, he said, real what's in my good, it's too late, and I said, spare us this night, and let's do it next month, I'll get a better handle on things. And that'll, at our March meeting, we'll be able to get authorized through Joe's office, a bond authorization for a ban for a second truck. I've got to get together with you, I can't do it tomorrow, but maybe Monday, we got to get last year's chips straightened around.
Okay.
Unfortunately, with the weather and everything else, some of the majority of what we were going to include in this year's cost has actually been expended this year. So we're gonna have to backtrack a little bit. We did wind up with an extra $83,000 in sales tax revenue last year over what we estimated. Aside from setting up the $35,000 in the capital fund for new trucks and equipment, which is about 10% of the cost of a new one now, but they gotta start.
Somewhere.
We could use that to help offset the cost of the one that Ted needs to get and probably will be delivered next year.
Yep.
But I gotta get together with you the first part of the week if I can.
Okay.
And I've got all the canceled checks that I can find back from the bank, photographs of them. That way the state installs it out another 2 or 3 months because you have to wait for your bank records to come back from the bank. Pictures of all the checks, they gotta have a copy of front and back of them before they even consider your application for CHIPS reimbursement. So I guess another month or two before they gotta pay money. But now we're into this year and I don't know how much we can carry over. That's, we can work that out Monday maybe.
Okay.
I know you made a couple trips down there and they keep asking you what kind of an idiot you got for not supervisor who doesn't know all this, but I haven't dealt with it in a number of years. Used to, but not anymore. That being said, that's all I have. Any old business? Any new business? Mr. Foster, I'll leave it to you.
I make the motion, we adjourn the meeting at 8:16.
We are adjourned.
Okay, we're all set.